Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is City of Heroes on the Rebirth server. We are with our Stalker Tiger Shrike, who is level 44 now. We have physical perfection, and our next power is probably going to be revived because I can't think of anything else I want to get for this character right now. But that's 3 levels away, and we are currently on a mini arc for our contact. We have 16.5 million plus XP and need over 2.5 million to get to level 45. So if you look at the numbers just quickly here, you can see it took 16 million XP to get 44 levels, and it's going to take like a fifth of that to get to level 45. So like you basically need 18 or 20% of the XP that you've already gotten at this point all the way through the character's life to go up one more level. And that shows you how much the leveling curve, how steep the leveling curve gets in the 40s, right? So we are heading toward another lab, and we need to defeat everybody in the lab. So we're not going to skip anything. We're going to just go through and beat up everybody. And we now have physical perfection, so hopefully that will help us a little bit with our endurance recovery and with our regeneration. We're now regenerating 28 hit points per second. I was looking back at an older video from the beginning of this season, and I think we were regenerating like 22 or something like that. So we're doing better. We've actually gotten a lot further with that, and eventually that regeneration will probably be up to, at this level, if we could triple slot it, it would be about 30 a second, which is actually quite a lot. Right? You're looking at about 3% a second. And remember that a single heal inspiration, a normal one, heals you at 25%. So if you're doing 3% a second, that means literally your natural regeneration is like a normal character popping a heal inspiration every 8 seconds. Which is absolutely fantastic. Don't need focus accuracy, I think, for these guys. Yeah, they're pretty easy to deal with. They are only +2s. Why are they only +2? This is a +3 mission. Because I was given this, I started this arc before I leveled, so this is going to be too easy, this mission, unfortunately. And there is a sniper. So now I'm seeing what's happening with these snipers. I finally figured it out. So before so the way this worked is when I first started fighting Nemesis with this character. Can I not hit this guy? Here we go. When I first started fighting Nemesis with this character, if you'll remember, if you look back on those first videos, which is, from last season, the snipers, I was able to sneak up on them and... Where did this guy come from? I was able to sneak up on the snipers and assassinate them. And then a couple of times, they saw me from the distance and attacked me while I was hidden, or so it seemed, and I thought, okay, they can see through it. But it turns out, I don't think they can see through the hide once it's engaged. But what happened to this guy, see where the smoke is, that's where he was standing, right? So I was over here, and the hide hadn't engaged yet, right? And then he saw me, because they can see you all the way across the room, so he can see your unhidden form so far away that even though you've re-engaged the hide, he already saw you. Now what is that? So now he did see me through the hide because I was hidden. So I don't know. I thought I had it figured out, but apparently not. I don't know, I thought I had that figured out, guys. I was explaining it, and he just did the opposite, so I'll have to keep an eye on it again. I figured, yeah, that they could see you from a distance, but I was not visible to him from there, because he was over here. Come on, die, you guys. Yeah, this guy just does not want to die. There we go. Um, so he was standing here, right? And he wasn't shooting at me before I turned hidden. I came over here to explain it, and then when I came back, he was shooting at me. Unless he had aggroed here to me while I was fighting the other guys and I didn't notice it, I don't know. I hear a glowy through the door. We have to deactivate 4 devices. Okay, it's not through the door, so where the heck is it? There it is. It is a good thing they make noise. They didn't used to make that noise. They used to make a higher, like, screechy kind of a noise, and it was harder to hear. And I think it may be during beta and possibly even right after launch, they didn't make any noise at all. And eventually the developers put the noise in because people, they were hiding these objects in little nooks and crannies, and people were they were missing them, right? They weren't seeing them. And then they were getting frustrated. Come on. There we go. So is there one in here? Because I hear a glowy. There we go. So there was an interesting thread on the D&D Beyond forum, and I'm not going to talk about D&D, really. Oh, I hit the wrong thing. I'm trying to hit super speed. Not going to talk about D&D, really, but I just want to see where this leads. Okay, so this looks kind of like a dead end. There's a nemesis in there. Okay. And what he asked was, am I being a power gamer? His friends had accused him of such. And he wanted to know if he was being a power gamer. And so I thought I would talk about that in City of Heroes terms. What's a power gamer? How do you know when you are one? That kind of thing. So power gaming, this is a concept that was, I think it was first named by the Champions people. The first time I ever saw it referenced, we're having a little problem here. First time I ever saw it referenced was, good, Delpain is active, was in Adventurers Club magazine in an article called Are You a Power Gamer? And the guys from Champions were asking about that. And so what they said was a power gamer is somebody who tries to squeeze every last ounce of efficiency out of his character. And it has often become the case that people who are highly efficient with their builds are considered power gamers by others, right? But the term is sometimes used differently. And so what do I mean? What do a lot of people mean when they say power gamers? Is it really just making an efficient build? There's also a term called a min-maxer, right? This is somebody who's trying to max out their character. So let's take a look at this build for a bit. Is this a power gamed build? Well, it depends what your definition is. First of all, people would say if I'm just using SOs, no, because it's not maxed out. But let's imagine there's nothing but SOs in the game, right? This is the way the game originally was. Is this character power gamed? Well, it is min-maxed, probably, at this point, but I don't think it's power gamed. So, other than maybe the hover power, believe it or not. So, what do we mean by power gaming and min-maxing? Well, min-maxing is trying to get the maximum amount of effectiveness out of the minimum amount of build, right? You get the most bang for your buck. And so this is a pretty min-maxed character, right? I've maxed out all of the slots. I've put everything in it to the best of my ability to make this character really effective in combat. I'm getting superior conditioning and physical perfection, and I'm going to slot those, and I'm not slotting Moment of Glory because I don't use it that much, and I am slotting Instant Healing because I do use it, and so forth. I'm not putting any extra slots on Resilience because after the third slot it doesn't do anything. I'm not putting any extra slots on Hide because it's only a 2%, just under a 2% buff, and we can only maybe get it to a 3.5% buff if we put 3 slots on it, and it's just not worth it, right? So I'm putting slots where they're worth it. I'm not putting slots where they aren't. This is sort of min-maxed. But it's not power gamed. Why would I say that? Well, because power gaming isn't just min-maxing. Power gaming is giving your character abilities the character wouldn't have just from the concept, from the in-character concept, but those abilities are effective. So hover, this character shouldn't have hover, right? And if I were role-playing her with a roleplay guild, I would never turn the hover on because she's not supposed to fly. The only reason I took hover was for gaming reasons, right? Because it's easier to just get up and down things than to have to go around with super speed, right? Is somebody attacking me? Okay, just want to make sure I'm not being attacked. So hover this is a minor power. Most people wouldn't look at this and say it's power gamed, right? But for example, this is a regeneration-based character. She doesn't have dodging ability, and she doesn't have strong physical defenses that are things like armor, right? But a lot of people on a build like this would have spent some of their power choices. Maybe they wouldn't have one of these attacks because you don't actually need them all to have a full attack chain. So we could get rid of one of these attacks, and in its place, that, and in place of hover, and in place of, I don't know, one of these other, something else, maybe Moment of Glory, we would have boxing, tough, and weave. And boxing is a punch, so we could replace one of these attacks with a punch. We don't really need it, but what the heck. But what we really want is the ability to get tough and weave. And tough gives you resistance, it's a toggle, and weave gives you a dodging ability. And that would stack those abilities on top of what we already have, so our resistance would maybe go up to 25%, and our defense would go up to maybe 10%, and that would make us more effective, right? But it wouldn't be in concept for this character to take less regenerative and claw powers. Why would she put her claws away and punch people, right? Why would she have weave or worse yet, tough? I mean, I could see her dodging, just learning to be acrobatic, but tough? Why would she get tough? She's not physically hard, right? She is regenerative. So it's not in concept to have those characters, but to have those powers, but it would make this character much more effective in combat. Now, I think this character's fine in combat. We're fighting +3s, we have no problem, so I'm not concerned about that. But one of the things that a lot of people do is they pick powers and abilities that their character probably wouldn't have in character if it were like a comic book character, right? But they give it to their character because it makes them more effective in combat. You have lots of blasters who take boxing, tough, and weave because it gives them resistances. And so that is power gaming, right? It's not just maxing out your character, but it's maxing out your character in a way that is not in character. And I don't know if we're going to get seen by this guy. We might. Maxing out your character in such a way that the character is doing things that if you were writing a comic book or a novel or something, the character wouldn't do, but it does them because it's effective in game, and it makes you better in combat, or it makes you better at fighting in some way. So again, hover is a good example. It's the only power we have on this character that she shouldn't have, right? For Silver Phoenix, Hasten. Hasten was sort of like power gaming, but not really, because I only took Hasten because I didn't want any other powers that I could take at the level that I took it. And I hardly ever engage it because I don't really want it for that character. I just gave it to her because I had to pick something. They won't let you not pick a power. And I've said before, like at this point with this character, instead of getting more powers, I would rather just get 3 slots at 47 and 3 slots at 49 and slot my powers more. But they won't let you do that because it would make you super effective. But in terms of the concept, it's absolutely the case that hover is not in concept for this character. There is simply no question about that. But all of her other powers are in concept, right? Instant healing, hasten, and everything. So power gaming, it's not just min-maxing, right? There is a difference. A lot of people use them synonymously, but there's a difference between min-maxing and power gaming. Power gaming, min-maxing is just maxing your character out, right? But you can stay in concept and max the character out, right? You can optimize while staying in concept, which is mostly what I've done for this character, right? It's really, that's min-maxing. Power gaming is where you take not just hover, right, which is partially done to make the videos more watchable so you guys don't have to watch me running around, but um, but also, so hover isn't something she should have, but it's one minor power. But if you're building a whole character, taking powers for the character or abilities for the character that it wouldn't have, and you what did I miss here? Oh, I didn't go south. And you uh, and you're taking those powers just because they make you more effective in combat, not because there's something your character ought to be able to do. That's power gaming, right? So again, hover is a power gamed power. I shouldn't have it. Right? She should have taken something else. I don't know what. Revive, right? Revive is a regen character. She a regen power. She's a regen character. Now we're going to have to fight this whole room. Um, so as a regen character, she should have revive rather than hover. Right. Well, we also know that the game is going to make me take a couple more powers, and I will take revive, and I'm still going to have at least one power that I don't want. So we may as well take one that is useful out of combat, right? And I'm sure most people would say, well, hover's not really power gaming because you don't use it in combat, right? Power gaming is usually improving the effectiveness of your character to do battle, right? And it's not just like for movement. But again, doing something like taking super jump for this character, right? Or doing something like taking boxing, tough, and weave just for the effectiveness, right? Not for concept, that is power gaming, right? Otherwise, it's just min-maxing. Now, min-maxing isn't necessarily in character either, in the sense that, and Matt Colville does videos about things, and he talked about this at one point. Your character shouldn't necessarily always be completely optimized, because if you're making a realistic character, real people are not optimized, right? I'm not optimized for the job I do, right? I do it well, but I'm not like biologically optimized for doing it. And there might be some physical characteristics, some mental characteristics that would make me better at my job, but I simply don't do them, right? For example, I'm an introvert, and I teach class, and I do a pretty good job of that, but the fact that I'm introverted makes me perhaps not say some things to the class that I would otherwise say, or maybe do things in a different way that would not be, maybe I'd be more effective if I were more of an extrovert, right? On the other hand, extroversion would give me more difficulties doing other things, like, for example, a number of my students, and both of my postdocs, I think, are introverts, and I understand them better than, say, an extroverted person might. So my point is, I'm not necessarily optimized, and I can't just change whether I'm an introvert or an extrovert based on what would be better for me at that moment, the way you can with a character in a role-playing game, right? And so Matt Colville's point, and I agree with it, is that real people are not optimized, and they don't necessarily behave in an optimal way. And if you're role-playing, which we're not really doing with this character, right? We're just running missions. But if you're actually role-playing for real with other people in a guild or something like that, you should be thinking about what would the character do, not what's the best tactical thing for me as a player to know the character should do, right? Because you're using your knowledge of how the game works to make optimal decisions that your character might not make, right? If you were simply acting in character. So, anyway, that's my discussion on power gaming, optimizing, and min-maxing. And I've often struggled to articulate to people the difference between min-maxing and power gaming. And I think the real difference is not the fact that you're optimized, because in both cases you are, but that the min-maxer is optimizing within the normal roleplay parameters of the character to the best of his ability, whereas the power gamer doesn't care about in-character concept. He just wants max effectiveness, and he'll give himself all kinds of things that don't make any in-character sense just to be more effective, right? And so, actually, this person on the forum who was asking, "Am I a power gamer?" I don't think he is. I think he's a min-maxer. Um, but but a lot of people don't even recognize that there's a difference between the two. That's enough about that. Let's call our contact. We got a badge for that. And he says we did it. Nemesis held this guy's in his grasp for 2 years before anyone even knew. So my question in this is, he controlled the weather for 2 years and you didn't even know it. So, like, was he being bad? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like Paragon City had ceaseless thunderstorms for 2 straight years, and now we're finding out why. Paragon City is fine, and it's looked like this both before and after. So, not sure why they did it that way. I hope we can now get on this guy's actual story arc. So, he says, it looks like the Nemesis, go defeat, and we're not just going to defeat guys on the street. The information you have found has been gold in Tiger Shrike, but it's not going to be worth a damn if Nemesis figures out we have it. If he knew about the records you found, then he could cover his tracks, and all that work would be wasted. So, I'm going to have to ask you to do something so that we can keep Nemesis in the dark about what we know. I won't lie to you, it's going to be dangerous, incredibly dangerous. If you say yes, you'll have to walk into a Nemesis trap, but it may throw him off our trail. I think this may be the story arc. Not yet. So he says, okay, the setup is pretty simple. Nemesis is getting suspicious about the high success rate against his plans recently. So he set up a fake base and dropped a lot of subtle hints about his location. If I didn't have the records you found, I wouldn't even suspect that this was a trap. But with them, I can tell that the place was built way too recently for it to be truly a super weapon development center. All you have to do is take out the base commander, just like in a real attack. That'd be easy. That won't be easy because Nemesis has a place full of deadly weapons and agents, and it's going to try to hurt you. Yeah, that's no problem. So we got to go to Talos Island, which we can do very quickly. Actually, from here, I think I'm just going to run. So yeah, you guys can leave comments. Are you a power gamer? Are you a min-maxer? Or do you slavishly follow the role-play concept of your character? Do you even take traits that are harmful to you in combat or make your character less effective just because that's the in-character concept? I'm playing D&D, as I've said before, and one of the players is playing a ranger, and you can decide. The way D&D works now, unlike the old days, you can decide where to put what stats you want, and I gave them a stat array, and they could put their stats wherever they wanted, and she chose to make her ranger have, like, the best ability was, I want to say wisdom and dexterity, but her third best ability, which is still pretty good, it's like a 15, she put in intelligence rather than something like constitution. And I think nearly anyone helping someone design a ranger who's going to be in melee combat a lot, she's doing 2-weapon fighting, would say, don't do that, pick a higher con so you can have more hit points. But she wants her ranger to be smart. That's her character concept. She's also a small little gnome, and she said it doesn't make sense that she would have monstrous numbers of hit points. So she decided, and that was a mistake because I'm not going to be able to get out here, she decided to go with higher intelligence. She also chose for her, she's going to choose when they get to level 3, which they're probably going to do in a week or so. She chose, I'm going the wrong way, she chose to do Beastmaster, which is a ranger subclass. And you can see I'm using my power game power right here. So she chose Beastmaster, which is a ranger subclass, and is pretty much agreed upon by nearly everyone that Beastmasters are what they say in the MMO world, gimped, right? Which means they're weak. Weaker than any other subclass of ranger. It's also generally thought that rangers are weak as a class, and that Beastmasters are the weakest. And then we got a boss right here, so we got to be careful. Let's take out these guys first. And so And now this should be an actual +3 mission, right? Yeah. Okay, good. So she's highly non-optimized, right? She doesn't have, her third best stat isn't where a min-maxer would put it. Her subclass is not what a min-maxer would choose, and yet she's been fine so far in the adventure. But the thing is, like, she's doing this because of concept. She has a concept in mind and she's sticking to it, and she's not worrying about maximizing anything. So my question to you is, what do you guys do? Do you maximize? Are you a min-maxer? You maximize the character but stay within the concept while maximizing. Are you a, I guess, a concept builder, right? Where you build exclusively for a concept, you don't even try to maximize, and maybe you even actively purposely take some weaknesses because the character should have them, right? I'm a small gnome. I shouldn't have a lot of strength in con. That's just the way I conceive this character, even if it hurts me in combat, right? Oh, this is going to be a fun fight, so we're going to need instant healing and hasten here. And let's assassinate the Jaeger, and I'll placate Nemesis. Or are you a power gamer? Do you not only min-max your character out, but screw the concept, I'm going to make this character as effective as possible. Look at this, I can't even hit this guy with a focus accuracy on. Yeah, this is going to make it really rough if I can't hit him. Okay. Let's go after Nemesis again here. See if we can knock him down. Get out of this stupid gas. God, I hate the Nemesis gas. Okay. So we're doing alright now. Like gate. So yeah, I guess there are basically 3 ways to play, right? One way is to max out, so that is to max out and stay in concept. One way is to max out regardless of concept. And then the final way is to not only not max out, but to maybe purposely not max out because you're going with concept rather than trying to be super effective in combat, and your concept actually calls for you to be a little bit less powerful than you would be if you were maxed out, right? So I think it's an interesting question. Leave comments. Which kind of player are you? I'm sort of straddle the line between, I'm not a power gamer, you know, I mean, hover accepted, right? And that's mostly just for convenience. I'm not a power gamer. I will not generally take powers for my characters or abilities or stats for my character that are out of concept. If the concept calls for the character to be strong but stupid, then she's strong or he's strong but stupid, right? I will not actively, purposely take powers, abilities, skills, class levels, whatever, that are out of concept for the character. However, within the character concept, I do min-max a little bit, right? But I only do it within the bounds of the concept, and if the concept calls for some suboptimality, and often it does, I'm perfectly willing to do that. To me, concept is number 1, and then I worry about maxing out within the concept if I can, but only within the confines of the concept, and not something that would not be in concept for the character. So now we're plating some +4s, and you can see how they're pounding on me, even though they're just minions. And you could also notice, I hope you noticed, that the first assassination that we did, I was not able to take him all the way down, right? Like, a Jaeger would be one-shotted by a built-up assassination if it were +3, but a +4 one is not. So I do want to say, I'm not, like, there's no judgment on my part about which type of player people should or shouldn't be. I'm just sort of acknowledging there were basically three types: the sort of the concept slave, if you want to call it that, the min-maxer, and the power gamer. And I'm kind of a cross between the concept slave and the min-maxer. Um, so what are you guys? Are you all the way one way? You know, just a pure concept slave? I know people who are like that, and they will take powers that abilities that actively hurt them because it's in concept. And I mean, I will do that if it's necessary in concept, but I tend to be aware of the game rules as I'm making up my concept, and I generally don't make character concepts that are going to be wildly inefficient in combat or in gameplay. Right? So that's also a little min-maxy, right? That I'm making up a concept that I already know will be fairly effective. Right? So how do you do it? How do you approach it? Do you just make up the concept and go, I don't care about the gameplay? Do you make up a concept knowing how the gameplay works, knowing that that concept will be relatively effective, and then, you know, live with a little bit of suboptimality? Do you min-max, pick a concept that you can min-max and then max it out to the nth degree? Or do you pick a concept and then go, I don't care about the concept, I'm going to just max it out regardless, even if it's going to have some abilities it shouldn't have? Again, none of those are right or wrong, right? It's what you want to do. And I would say in my D&D group, I have all stripes. I would say that the person playing the ranger who's new to D&D is probably not really able to min-max or power game because she doesn't really know the rules. She's new, right? So, well, like when I say roll to hit, we still have to remind her sometimes it's a 20-sided die, right? So somebody who's that new is not going to be able to realistically min-max because they don't know the ins and outs and secrets and sort of the secret doors and concealed passageways of the rules that those of us who've played the game a lot have kind of memorized, right? She doesn't know that, and so she's not going to be able to min-max her character, and she's still new, and new players are often, as I was when I started, not only aren't you able to min-max, but you're not even trying to, because you're just trying to play the game kind of as intended, and the game designers probably never really intend people to min-max. And so, and they often know that some people can't, and I left that area alone because this isn't a defeat all, so we just need to find the leader. So a lot of people can't min-max. Heck, in City of Heroes, when the game started, they didn't tell you any of the statistical information. They didn't even tell you how much buff a single or a dual origin enhancer or a trainer gave you. What they told you was a dual origin's twice as good as a trainer, and an SO is twice as good as a dual origin. But they didn't tell you kind of how much, and I'm trying to play with this to make sure we get a lot more accuracies now that we're fighting +4s. They didn't tell you how much, right? You didn't know that it was about a 33% buff to a, and I guess this is the boss, I'm not really sure. A 33% buff to a single origin, a 17% buff or so to a dual origin, and a 8% buff to a trainer. They didn't tell you that. What they told you was, it's better, right? It's twice as good. But you didn't know how good is twice as good. What is it actually doing? They didn't say. We do definitely not need these bounce backs, so I'm going to delete them. So they didn't tell you. They didn't tell you what your base chance to hit was. They didn't tell you when you buffed somebody, like your defense, like with my scrapper. I put 2 slots in combat jumping and slotted it for defense with trainers. Because what do I know, right? They said it improves your defense. They didn't say how much. It was only later that I found out, after somebody tested it, it's only like a 1% defense, and the defense trainers and even the single origins only give you a little bit, and even if you triple or even if you 6-slot it, you can only get 1% defense up to like 2 or 3, so there's no point, right? And so originally they didn't show you any of that. So actually, for most players, when this game started, it wasn't actually possible to min-max because you didn't know what the numbers were. Then later on, there were players like a person on the forums whose forum name was Arcanaville, who actually recorded gameplay and they tracked it, and they figured out by counting hits and misses that our base to hit was 75% and that the villain's base to hit was 50, and how much of a buff buildup was, and how much of a buff and accuracy inspiration was, and how much of a buff, like an actual buff to hit and damage, the SOs and the DOs actually did. Finally, after a while, and I think it took until Statesman left, the developers exposed all the numbers to us so that you can really build in a maxed out or effective way. But that is not how the game first launched. And so a lot of times the builders and designers of games don't expect and realistically don't even want you to min-max, right? They're not planning for that. And oftentimes min-maxers and power gamers, especially power gamers, who are even going out of concept to make their character more effective, they in many ways can break the game and do things that the designers never really intended, and that can often make things very difficult for the designers because your character is doing things they never expected you to do. So now the game is too easy. A lot of people have complained in D&D, for example, that they have a challenge rating formula where you're supposed to make up an adventure that is you're supposed to make up encounters that are approximately a challenge rating equal to the level of the party. So the way it works is a creature with a challenge rating of 5 is a challenge to a party of level 5 characters. That's the intention behind how they design characters and encounters in D&D. And what a lot of people have said is, well, that may work a little bit in the low levels, but in the higher levels, it actually doesn't work very well because the characters can do so much. And I may need Moment of Glory here, actually. So he can't hit me or do damage. That's because I'm talking and not paying attention. He's only level 47. He shouldn't be giving me that much trouble. Okay, Moment of Glory has ended. And he has gone invulnerable, so we'll just wait. Can I placate him? I can't remember if I can. Yeah, it says unaffected, but I can placate him. So while we're waiting for him, we can go ahead and do that. So yeah, the designers a lot of times don't build games. The players are end up maxing out to be so much more powerful. I accidentally hit a function key there than the designers intended. And so you have a challenge rating 5 monster, he fights a level 5 party, and they wipe him out in 2 rounds. Why? Because the players have been so much more maxed out than the designers assumed when they play tested these things, that what should have been a challenge ends up not being. Right? And so they don't necessarily expect your character to be completely maxed out like that. And power gaming and sometimes even min-maxing can sometimes break the game, right? Which is why sometimes people complain about power gamers and stuff like that. But yeah, we have people of all stripes in my game group, so the person playing the gnome is pretty much a concept I don't know, maybe concept slave is the right word, a concept hawk, right? So she's doing everything completely by her concept, right? Whereas the person playing the sorcerer, he's kind of power gaming, right? He's definitely trying to do things that are max effectiveness for his character, to the point where I've several times said to him, you don't have to do that. And I think, and he's not actually a power gamer by nature. He certainly wasn't back in the old days when we played together in tabletop. He never did that. He always built for concept. And he does build for concept now. It's just that he's also very, very concerned. I guess he's sort of min-maxing, right? He's very concerned about maxing out his character to the nth degree. And I said to him, you know, I think the problem is that he is so used to this. He's used to video games. And in video games, sometimes you do have to max things out because the game is really hard and you don't have a dungeon master in a video game, right? So, like, when we're playing, I can see what's going on, and I can tune the adventure. We finished the mission. I can tune the adventure and the encounters and what's going on in the encounters to be an appropriate challenge for the players, and I can dynamically shift things as we go. But a computer won't do that. So if I put this thing on +3 and I go in there and it's too hard for me and I keep getting killed, the computer has no mercy on you, right? And so you're going to have to be maxed out in order to do that. And so I've said to him a couple times, you need to calm down about this, because, like, I'm DMing. I'm not going to kill your characters. Your character doesn't have to be super effective. Trust your DM. We got into this argument at one point because he wanted to take this power called, I think it's color spray or something, and it's a very effective, like, first level attack for a wizard or a sorcerer. But in order to do it, you need a material component, a diamond, that's 50 gold pieces in value. And he didn't have 50 gold pieces to spend after he'd bought all his equipment. So I said, where'd you get the diamond? And he's like, well, shouldn't I just start with it because it's a starting spell? You just get the material components of your starting spells. And I'm like, I don't see that in the rules anywhere. To me, if it's a 50, you get to have the components, the material components that don't cost any money. But if it says a 50 gold piece diamond in the rules, you've got to acquire it. And a 50 gold piece diamond isn't going to be easy to come across just in town, in a small town where they were starting, and plus you don't have the money for it. And so he got really annoyed because he felt like I was trying to hurt his character or whatever. I said, well, you can take it as a spell and just not use it until you get a diamond. And he wasn't happy about that either. Well, who knows when I'm going to get a diamond? I said to him, I'm your DM. Right? If I know you've picked a spell that you don't have the material component for, I will give you a way to get a hold of that component. Right? And I said, you should allow for the possibility that I might give you a quest at the beginning to go get a diamond. I mean, I can tailor this to your character. So what he didn't know that I actually did while we were having this discussion, I was building the first adventure, and they actually went on the first adventure second. They picked what I was going to have them do second first to do, which is fine. They have free will and they can do what they want. But at the end of that adventure, there's actually a goblin boss who has a diamond ring. And it's a 15 gold piece ring with a 50 gold piece diamond on it, so it's worth 65 gold. If he wants to keep the ring or take the diamond out, sell the ring and keep the diamond, he can now do color spray, right? He picked a different spell because he's like, I want to be able to cast my spells. And to be honest, if he had color spray and they went on the other adventure, I would have moved that ring into the other adventure because I want him to be able to cast his spells, but I want it to be in character. His character should have to find a diamond first. He's not rich, right? And to me, that's the fun of it. And I think he would agree that that's the fun of it, but he's so used to video games where if you start out with a weak character, the computer's just going to mercilessly kill you, that he's not thinking as a tabletop player, because he hasn't done that in a long time. And so, anyway, there's a huge difference between tabletop and video games, and a lot of people, I think, learn to min-max because the computer is a merciless DM. So yeah, we have a power gamer and a min-maxer, and then a couple people who are concept slaves, and or I say concept hawks, let's put it that way. And so it's interesting to see the different types of players. And again, there's no right or wrong way to play. Right, it's whatever is fun for you. So if he's really a power gamer and it's really fun for him to power game, then as his DM, I have to make sure that he has an enjoyable experience maxing out his character and give him the ability to do that. I've allowed him to do a couple of house rules with his sorcerer. That some are from Unearthed Arcana, which hasn't even published yet. Some are he made up his own subclass because he wasn't happy with any of the subclasses, and his subclass is probably a little tiny bit overpowered. I just let him have it. There's 4 players. As long as he's not outshining the rest of the party, what do I care? Right? I don't care. It's not balanced against wizards or other sorcerers. And if there were other sorcerers in the game, they'd be frustrated that he was the most powerful sorcerer. Who cares? The other sorcerers in the game are all NPCs. I control them and I don't care. Right? So the idea is you want to have fun. So I'm not judging people for being power gamers or min-maxers or concept hawks. Just pointing out that those are the types of players out there, and I'm curious which type are you. So leave a comment down there. Again, no judgment. And what kind of character are you? What kind of player are you? What kind of characters do you like to make? Do you like to optimize, min-max, power game? What's your favorite? Let us know in the comments. I think we'll stop here, and I'll be back with another episode in the future. Until then, I am Scarperlock, and this has been City of Heroes.